Hello everyone, this is GrindCore for Deuces.com with the third video of the Thin Red Grind. And I'd like to start this video by reviewing a hand from the forums about, it's at NL100, a hand played against a maniac. You'll see me playing as a maniac in the video, so I thought I'd review a related hand. Alright, so the maniac raises pre-flop, hero calls, and we flop a flush draw, and instead of raising the flop, the hero in the hand called the flop and then jammed over the turn bet. Alright, so the maniac is 44-38 over quite some hands. Super wide range from opening, c-bets a lot, and then 84% on the turn. Okay, now first let's look at some of the replies. The first player doesn't like it. He thinks it looks too bluffy, and he also says that 48% on the turn isn't really high. Okay, here's something to think about. What this player is doing, he's just looking at the naked turn stat, not at how it relates to the rest. Let's say that you're playing only pocket aces, so your VPIP is 0.5. You can have 100% barreling stats. You always triple barrel without ever bluffing. You always have aces. So, the naked stat doesn't mean that much. It depends on other stats. And yeah, for the average player, 48% on the turn isn't really that high. But the average player has like 20 VPIP or something. He doesn't have 44 VPIP. The tighter your range is, the higher this number can be without bluffing. And the wider your range is, the lower this number has to be without bluffing. So if 48% isn't that high for a normal player, and for a player that is 44-38 and c-bets a lot, this is actually a very wide range that he's betting on the turn. Say, to simplify it, let's say that the flop is king 10 deuce, and a 20 VPIP player has king queen and ace queen, and he c-bets both of them, so that's 100%, but then he only bets on the turn with the king queen. Now his double barreling stat is gonna be 50%. Now if we take a loser preflop player who plays ace queen, king queen, but also ace jack. Now if this player is again having the same turn frequency, or the same turn betting range of only king queen and giving up with his bluffs, then his double barrel stat there would have been 33% instead of 50%. So you see that because of his higher VPIP, the percentage of non-bluffs that he has on the turn goes down. So the same betting frequency from that player actually means more bluffs just because of the VPIP. And yeah, I just want to point it out that 48% combined with these stats is actually a very weak and wide barreling range. So how do you exploit someone who has a wide and weak barreling range on the turn? Well, essentially this guy is creating dead money on the turn because their range is too wide and weak. So you want to delay all your bluffs to the turn. Not you don't want to make them on the flop, because the guy's just going to give you some free money on the turn. So if the standard play is to raise a flush draw on the flop, then against this player you should make the adjustments to raise him on the turn. Or if his river aggression frequency is also really high, you can even go as far as also calling the turn and then jamming over his river bet, regardless of whether you hit or not. Both lines are fine. I think given how low this guy's when to showdown is, that's actually a sign that he doesn't take pot control lines with his second pair. If he's the type to open 6-7 suited from under the gun but then check call the flop like this, his when to showdown stat will be higher. So the fact that it's low, that suggests that he is very aggressive with his weaker pairs as well, and that's good for us because those are hands that he will fold if we shove on him. So yeah, and so if he has a hand like pocket eights, he will probably just blindly bluff the river as well and then fold to a shove or something. So I think we can go ahead and actually call turn and jam over any river bet. That would be even better than the line hero took, but the line that hero took here is better than raising the flop. And Yeah, this player also doesn't like it. He says the 4 is a terrible barreling card for him. Yeah, sure, it's a terrible barreling card, but this guy doesn't care. If he's only barreling at good barreling cards, then his frequencies would be lower. And also, because of the low into showdown, yeah, that suggests that he is not taking pot control lines with second pair type hands that should be pot controlling. So he's probably still betting on the 4 turn with like a 6, pocket 7s, pocket 9s, just hands that should be checking at some point. He's just barreling with them. So there are still a lot of hands that we can raise him off of. And yeah, this player says, yeah, I don't think he's ever folding King X, so you're only trying to fold out air in his weak pairs. And flop raise would have achieved that much cheaper. Well, the thing is, you're not trying to bluff him off King X. You know the guy is stacking off with it, but you are trying to fold out his. Yeah, you're folding out his air and weak pairs. But why fold him out on the flop when you can get him to put in even more money with it by slow playing? The majority of his range is going to be those weaker hands. He's going to have more weak hands than King X. So, yeah, of course it's higher variance to call and then jam the turn. But if you raise the flop and he folds his pocket 8s, then you only got this $5 out of him. But if you call and then jam over the turn bet, then you get an additional $14 out of him. So that's definitely worth it. And if you call twice and then jam over his river bet, you'll get even more money out of him. And maybe, just maybe, he even folds a king because it looks so much like you slow played the set. And also everybody here is thinking that raising flop is better. But for the same reasons, if you raise the flop, villain's actually going to put you on a draw. But when you call, he's not going to put you on a draw anymore, because everybody raises draws on the flop. So when you call the flop and then raise the turn, it looks stronger. So if there is a line that gets him to fold King X, it's definitely one of those delayed raises. Either jam over the turn bet or jam over his river bet. And another player suggests that you don't have to... not sure exactly which post it was, but another player suggested that you could make a smaller raise to show that you're committed because the jam looks so bluffy. Oh yeah, that's actually the first player. But the downside of that is that if you raise to like $40 here, and our opponent has a nut flush draw, he might just think that he has some fold equity. He only has equity when called, so you could jam over it with a nut flush draw, or jam over it with like, well, 3-4 of spades is probably not folding, but there are some semi-bluff rejams that he can be making, hoping that he has fold equity, and that is horrible for us because he's actually incidentally value shoving. And if we jam ourselves instead of making the small raise, then we take away the ability for him to rejam with a nut flush draw. If we jam here on the turn, I don't think he's calling with a nut flush draw. So that's another advantage that jamming has over raising smaller. So I think if you're going for the turn raise, you should definitely be jamming and not raising smaller. Alright, I hope it was helpful, and I'll move on to the session. I'm currently playing 4 tables of NL 100, just starting a session, don't have any reads on anyone. I do recognize this player. He's a Deuces crack member. I played against him before. Remember having some interesting hands against him and some notes as well. But I'm on a new computer and I don't have any of my my old database on here. But if I remember correctly, he I'm actually not sure about my notes number. Great spot to have ace king, obviously. Here I get donked into by fish. I beat air, have some backdoors. Just calling. When he calls twice, he probably has something like pocket 10s. Don't think I can bluff him off it on this board, so I'll just check. It could also be Queen Jack suited or something, but I don't have any reads on him. And if he's the type to call with suited connectors, then this is a board that he could potentially shove over my c-bet on. Just underbetting to get called by some random really weak hand, maybe a high card, maybe a check raise bluff. I think if he was gonna bluff at it, he would have bluffed the turn. You can't really have a busted draw. I think those bluff the turn. And he's obviously a fish because of his stack size. If he's a regular, then the river lead would be a little bit weird, because if he has something, if he has a bluff catcher, he can check call because he can let me represent the ace. And if he has an ace beat, then he can go for a check raise because I can both bluff at the ace and value bet the ace if I have it. But since he's a fish, he likely just hit the river, and that's why he was betting. Oh, he's actually on 2 tables. That's the same guy. Yeah, we'll see how many he's playing. Four. So maybe he's a regular that plays with 50 big blinds. If that's the case, then I should be c-betting the flop here, because with that stack size you can't really flat suited connectors. You need to be deeper for that, so this board is horrible for his flatting range. He's flatting with more broadways and pocket pairs and less speculative hands. Unless of course he's a 4-tabling fish, which could also be possible. Squeezing here because he called this raise really fast, which leads me to believe that he's not trapping, even though I have an aggressive image. I'm new to the table, but he knows who I am, so I have an aggressive image. And the speed at which he called, I just don't think he's trapping. And also he's probably just raising anything because there are 2 limpers. And he probably has some sort of suited connector, suited Broadway. Though it is still possible that he has something like ace jack, and he's probably shoving that on me. Though I'm not exactly sure. Interesting. Alright, if I had something, I'd probably call this with 6s and up, 7s and up. If I had a backdoor flush draw or something, I'd have check called there. And now I'm gonna squeeze again, because last time I squeezed and it did fold. I think he's not expecting me to bluff in a spot like this. How did I get into this spot? Did I call a raise with 10 deuce? Looks like I'm the big blind. Oh wait, this guy probably just set in, because I have no stats on him yet, so I was small blind. And then I should probably have c-bet that. Check calling is fine as well. Yeah, check calling is probably better, because there are quite a few hands that can raise. That's a really big bet, probably a flush. Um, I'll take a note about that bet size. Small raise is usually weak, so just 3-betting it super light there. This is almost always a bluff, but my equity is just way too poor to continue with it. But I will take a note. Here I'm c-betting because I think to him it will be face up if I check here. I'm getting leveled here. He knows I like hero calling, so he could do this for thin value. But there's, the only bluffs that he can have in his range are pure out of position air floats. And I do remember from playing him before that he's probably not the type to do that. I think he was chatting about that race that he made on the flop there. And usually when they say anything in chat, that means that they had it. Small sample, but this guy has been playing a ton of hands, so I'm gonna see how he responds to 3-bets. He might be a fish, just playing everything. But yeah, I can't really flat with the hand, but I really yeah, just want to play with him essentially. Just raising large enough to set up a turn shove. There's so many draws out here, I'm not gonna slow play. Alright, so he's just a huge fish. Purple label. Oh, we got there? Didn't even notice. And this C note guy limp called, check called, and then check shoved, and he's typing some nonsense in the chat. I'm gonna 3-bet these 8s here with intention of 5-bet shoving. There's a reasonable chance that he that he'll 4-bet bluff, I feel. At least he seems to be, from that overbet on the river. He seems to be in the mood to mess around instead of playing a little bit more cautious. You know, he doesn't seem to be afraid of me, so I'll give him a chance to do something fancy. Here he raised the min bet donk with an overpair, and then he checked the turn ace. I think he should really keep betting there, because there are a lot of draws and that will still call you. And it's very unlikely that yeah, unless your opponent has a nut flush draw, you probably still have the best hand if you were good on the flop. Min bet donk called, draw, check turn. Just calling here to play a pot with the fish. He's deep stacked, so the deeper my stack becomes, the better, because then I can stack him for more money later on. So if I can get in a neutral EV spot, which is variance, like compared to folding. Let's say flatting is pre-flop, it has a higher variance than... if flatting here is neutral EV pre-flop, flatting has more variance than folding. And variance is good, because if I lose the pot, I can just rebuy to 100 big blinds. But if I win a pot, my stack size will get deeper, and then you know, I will win more money when I stack him. So every time there's a deep maniac at your table, you just want to be playing very high VPIP, trying to get deep stacked as well. Like here, I'm just gonna squeeze, because I think if he had anything remotely playable, he'd probably 3-bet the guy. Even though King 5 plays like shit against him, I'm in position and I know what he does when he hits the flop. He donks half pot, so that probably means that his checks are weak, and I'll be able to make very effective c-bet bluffs to compensate for the fact that my hand is worthless. This is probably gonna take 2 barrels, just because he won't believe me on this board. He did fold. Probably had something like 7-9, something completely hopeless. Flatting the king jack here because the guy's in the big blind. And he didn't donk, so I'm just gonna bet at it. I'll bet on the smaller side, because he check folds air anyway, and if this guy had anything, he'd have c-bet because of this player. This guy's probably gonna underbet fold the river. Probably has something like 9-10. Now, I could call to get deeper, but the problem is, after I get deeper, he's actually shallow again. If I could make a coin flip call here against anyone else, I'd do it for the variance, but against him, I don't actually get deeper with him if I win that hand, because he won't be deep anymore. So I'll fold to save these $20 that I have. And if I call and lose, I won't have those $20 anymore. Let's see, he might be milk betting with a 7 or something. Alright, queens. Him running out of a time bank is good for us because, oops, the wrong button. It will, when we shove on him on the river, he will likely timer fold instead of making hero calls. So it allows us to get more out of line against him. I'll actually fold the 10-3 just because this guy is in the blinds. Though he has... No, I'll open it. I'm in position and he has been somewhat tight so far. We know from that previous hand that his donks aren't very strong. So I'm just gonna call him down. Here I'm just 3-betting bills. He seems to be fit or fold, and I can see but literally every flop post flop, because even on connected boards he also has random stuff like, you know, queen deuce offsuit and stuff in his range. I don't, and he probably has something because he called, and I don't think I can bluff him off it. I don't have the reads to know that he's afraid of kings yet, and there's a really good chance that he just calls me down on 3 streets with like 4-3 or something. He won't believe me if I raise here because he's paranoid. And I know he bets small for value, so I'm just gonna fold now. Yeah, he probably has something like a 9, I'll just let him have it. And this guy, he donks when he's weak, and he didn't donk, so I'm gonna check back, afraid that he has hit the flop. Jam, jam. I'm not gonna c-bet because he donks when he hits and he check folds when he misses. Now I'm gonna bet though, because I don't think he's folding anything with the diamond. Yeah, probably had pure air. Let's see, the fish went to showdown here. Here he did go for a bluff, alright. I'm gonna be 3-betting him. I'll even 3-bet a little bit on the large side, because I know he's gonna call and fold to the c-bet. Though the fiddler fold seems to be when he is out of position. I think I'm gonna double barrel him here just because of the weak pairs out there. And okay, when he calls twice, doubt he's folding. Just gonna keep trying. If he calls again this time, then it's more likely that he's full of it in 3-bet pots. I'm 3-betting him now because I'm in position and okay, really have to lay off for a while now. I'll actually still open this, but I wouldn't 3-bet him with it. Oh shit, I meant. Actually the fold is probably good because he bets weak when he is weak, and when he pots, I'm gonna check shove on him. Wow. I'm definitely stacking off pre-flop against him. Probably goes weak as ace-9 suited, ace-10 off, king-queen. Any pocket pair. Also at this point I can take flips, because if I win a flip of him, then I'm actually 200 big blinds deep with him instead of only 100. No, I really hope that he doesn't shove. This is such a good spot to be in. Oh! Getting owned by him. Really hope this goes to showdown, so I can get a read on both of them. He has pretty weak bet sizes against the monstrous fish, so I wonder if that's for value. It looks like thin value. It's not a flush, but something like. No, he didn't 3-bet pre, didn't he? I was gonna say something like tens, but let's see what happened there exactly. This guy has folded to c-bets and donk bet. Players that players that have a high fold to c-bet percentage, usually their donks mean that they hit. They will check fold with air and donk when they hit. I think if he had a king, he'd keep betting, so he probably has a 9 or some sort of draw. So I'm just going to value bet this. Yeah, he's not deep enough to call. And he donks when he hits, so I'm definitely raising this for value. No, my kicker sucks, but he's probably playing hands like kings. He's 91 VPIP. He's also playing king deuce. Against his entire range of king x, king 9 with flush draw has to be a favorite. Queen jack off. And now we're deep with him. Great spot to be in. I'm just gonna open this because of the fish. Queen 4 suited is like 50% against a range of 100% of hands. And I'm in position, so definitely a playable hand in a situation like this. I really hope he sucks out. The deeper he gets, the better, because I'm covering him. Ah, he's gonna win the pot. He didn't just improve. Value squeezing because of the fish. And this guy, over the small sample, he's been opening a lot and c-betting 100%, so I'm gonna call here with intention of check raising him on a lot of flops. He has been donking a lot. But the weak donks were weak hands that were folding. He hasn't been donking big very often. And he seems to donk when he's hitting, so I'm actually gonna fold. He probably has hit a 10. And here I was gonna check raise a lot of flops, but obviously when I hit the flop I don't have to check raise anymore. Oh, here we go. Shame that he just lost the big pot there. And I'm actually going to c-bet for value because he has been, it's possible that he hit the flop every single time, but in position in 3-bet pots he seems to not like falling to the c-bets. Alright, all the draws missed here. And he insta overbet jams. I think he's pretty sure I don't have a strong hand because the board is quite drawy and I didn't raise at any point. He has been really aggro. I think I have to pay it off with, you know, these limited reads that I have. He didn't donk, so he probably has nothing. But he has been calling min bets when he had nothing, so I'll just min bet instead of checking. Now there could be some draws out there that he can have, and also a pair, so now I'll bet larger. Think I have to call. Yeah. Ship. Oops, this was too large. Oh well, maybe he still calls because he's a fish. Checking for pot control. You know, his most likely hand is ace high or air. Or a king. And there's no need to c-bet against that range. This is interesting. If he had the king, he wouldn't be betting on the ace. And the ace is a good card for him to continue bluffing on. So it's like ace or nothing, all the draws missed. And I get pot odds, so this is definitely a call. Right. So now we can take some bet size notes about it. So that's the thing, even if you're wrong with a bluff catch, you do get pot odds, which people underestimate. And you also get the showdown read. You know, if you fold, I know nothing, but now I know that he bumps, not flush draw, and both the timing and the bet sizing tell on. He's fit or fold, so I'm not going to see bet this. He donks when he hits, so I'm definitely checking back to either induce a bluff or... Oh. But yeah, if I see bet the flop, he just folds. You know, when he checks, I know he has air. Mostly. I'm gonna call this because I'm deep with everyone, and of course the fish. He's probably not gonna see bet bluff if he has ace king here. So I do get to see the turn. And he probably has air because he didn't donk, so if it checks through here, I'm definitely taking a stab at it on the turn. Haven't taken any notes on this guy yet. Definitely a good barreling card. I have to triple barrel though, because a lot of his flop calling range just made pair plus draw here. This is pretty sick. I think I just have to call again, even though it's pretty deep now. He probably has nothing. And the only guy I have to get through is this guy, but there's a lot of hands possible. But if he check calls and then he folds, there are a lot of turn cards that I can barrel with this hand. I can turn a lot of draws, I can barrel scare cards. And he might have something like pocket sixes that just check folds here. So I think it's fine to take a stab here. Plus anything that's high variance is good, because I have he left, that's a shame. But I have to get deep with him. What could he have? I think if he had a queen, he'd bet the river. So he has something like 9-10 suited. And how much will 9-10 suited call? Probably like this. I think if I bet like 17 or something, he's probably folding, because the 8 is a pretty scary card. Let's see, maybe that fish is moving up in stakes. I'll actually chase him even though it's an NL100 video. Nope. Three betting with 9s here for value, just because this guy is hyper aggro and full of it. He's probably gonna call really wide here. And that $3 raise over a limp is probably not very strong either, so I'm not worried about getting 4-bet. My image is really bad at the table from playing against the fish, so I'm gonna... I could have 3-bet there. But it's better to go for thin value 3-bets on this table now than it is to go for bluffs. And this guy, he's probably a player type that I shouldn't be opening any 2 against just from the HUD stats, 3-betting a lot, like 30 VPIP. If this guy was a big fish or if it was way more aggro, then flatting becomes better. But otherwise I should just be looking to get it in. I've also been really active on this table, so people are likely to play back at me a little bit too light. Right, I'll just finish up my orbits. I should actually have raised it because this guy posted. He didn't limp. Because there's no HUD stats on him yet, he's new at the table. And now, because he just folded to my 3-bet, he has just 4-bet bluff. I think he's gonna be less inclined to 4-bet bluff me again. So that means that the EV of a 3-bet bluff goes up because it's gonna be less likely to play back at it. And also if he had a hand like Ace-King, he'd probably have 4-bet again, hoping that there may be 5-bet bluff or something. So this is a pretty good board. It's more likely that he doesn't have a slow played hand. Could also have C-bet like $6 here and then bomb it on the turn. That might have been better, just because that induces more weak calls from like pocket 9s and then they check fold the turn. I'm gonna, let's see. The more aggro he is, the better check raising here becomes. I don't really have any reads on that yet. But I think a lot of his preflop calling range missed here, so he's likely just gonna stab with like king queen, stuff like that. And the reason I'm picking this hand to check raise with is because I have backdoor spades that I can barrel, and I can barrel overcards. The board is pretty low, so overcards will be scary to his calling range mostly. So a lot of turn cards that I can barrel at. The more turn cards that you can barrel at, the higher the EV of some sort of move will be. Last hand here under the gun. I'll cut it out if it's air. Actually, I'll go play 100 VPIP next hand, just to get in one last spot. I'm actually gonna move my whole cards outside of the screen. Oh well. I had Deuce 8 offsuit. Right. Right, here are my stats for the session. Ran quite bad, as you saw in the video, but you can see it here as well, like 3.5 binds under EV. Played quite loose, but a lot of that was because of the 100 VPIP fish. So if you're playing 45 VPIP and the fish is playing 100 VPIP, then even the bottom of your range is a favorite against his range, so it's correct to be playing super loose when there's a player like that at your table. You can't just sit around waiting for aces like the rest of the table was mostly doing, because the fish won't be there forever. You know, he's likely playing drunk and going to sleep soon or whatever. So you have to get into as many spots with him as possible. Don't be afraid of the variance. And just wanted to quickly go over this King Jack call again for 182 big blinds pre-flop. I stoved, like I can't know what his range is, but I just gave him this range, like any pair, any ace, lots of broadways. I mean, we've seen him shove the 8-9 offsuit, and we have seen him shove like over a ton of my yeah, he was 4-betting 40% of the time. So I think it's reasonable to assume that he has a range this wide. And also I have 3-bet him and c-bet on an ace-high flop where he didn't fold. So it is actually somewhat likely that, you know, because we have seen him shove the 9-8, that he's just jamming with hands that he, you know, trashy hands, but with somewhat playable hands like an ace, he's actually calling. And if this is range with all those hands, then you'll see I'm 47%. And let's see how much I needed to call there. I needed 45% to call, so I'd be priced in if this is his range. And you can probably discount some of the stronger hands a little bit. You know, let's say we just count just 2 offsuit aces and 1 premium pair. Well, it's not that big of a difference, but yeah, if you see, I'm more priced into call than before, and if he is flatting with ace king, ace queen, then he's probably also flatting with, you know, these, and if he's flatting queens, he's probably also flatting these, and I'm probably gonna be a favorite now. Yeah, but yeah, it was close, but I think the call was fine. Right, so let me know if you have questions about any other hands. Just post them in the thread. This was GrindCore for Deuces Correct, and see you guys next week.